The Indiana Hoosiers are national champions. They defeat the Miami Hurricanes 27-21. I am Joey Lavelle. This is Dylan Chambers. And we just watched the national championship with the Indiana Hoosiers winning it. First national title in the school's history. Kurt Signetti is 27-2. National champions in his second year at the Hoosiers, one of the losingest programs in college football history. And we'll get to a little bit of the ramifications a little bit later. We're going to give a game analysis, and then we'll get what it means for the sport a little bit later. So to start off with the Hoosiers, they won third down. They were 6 of 15 to 3 of 11. My bad. They won rushing 131 to 110. One time of possession, 36 minutes to 23 minutes. And so those are all of those factors. Special teams and defense were a huge factor in this game. And granted, they gave up 21 to Miami, but the punt block was a huge thing. That put the game up to 17-7. And Indiana didn't really run as many RPOs as we're used to them seeing. Those weren't as available considering the run game wasn't there nearly as much. The run game ended up being there towards the end of the game. But in this game, and it goes for both teams, it was just a bunch of body blows, them throwing it. And I'll take you back to the first half. You go into the end of the first half with that Miami missed field goal, and Indiana's up 10-0, and you're like, wow, like this game might really end up being a blowout. And then Indiana gets the ball to start the second half. Yeah, Indiana gets the ball to start the second half. Miami really does well. They are playing, their corners are really up towards the line, which they hadn't done previously in the game. And then they run their first stretch play of the game and are able to get a 57-yard touchdown off of it. It was a 2-play drive. And then you keep going, a couple of 3-and-outs, and then you have another 3-and-out. That was the third 3-and-out in a row for a team. And then you had the punt block of Alex Bauman, just missing a block. It was just unbelievable. I did not do my homework on checking if he had been consistently on the punt team, but he just missed it and acted like there was someone behind him to block it, or he assumed his punter was going to be able to get it off. Meanwhile, the punter's running towards that side of the field. It was a tremendous block, a tremendous play. It wasn't a play that Indiana went all-out block on. And then they come back, and Miami goes on a 10-play, 81-yard, 5-minute touchdown drive. And that ended with the Mark Fletcher touchdown run. You had the big pass for Malachi Toney. And then you have Indiana bounce right back with a 12-play, 75-yard drive with another touchdown. That was the tremendous Fernando Mendoza touchdown run on fourth down. It took a lot of stones for some of these coaches to call some of these fourth downs. Both Indiana was 2 of 2 and Miami was 1 of 1. That put the game at 24-14. And that was like, all right, well, we got 9 minutes left and Indiana is up 10. That might have sealed the game. Miami comes right back with a very high tempo touchdown drive. 8 plays, 91 yards in less than 3 minutes. And so now this game's 24-21. Indiana shoots right back with a 11-play, 57-yard drive, along with Miami burning their 3 timeouts.
Yeah.
They kick the field goal. They go up 27-21. Then you had the inevitable. To start this final drive, you had the 5-yard penalty delay a game on Miami. They're kind of slow getting out of the huddle, trying to get to the line of scrimmage before the drive even started. And then you had the roughing the passer penalty, which was it was a questionable call to me, especially with how much the refs had let go during that game. I thought the refs were relatively good. They just didn't call anything. And then you had the inevitable Carson Beck interception.
Yeah.
And I thought Carson Beck had played relatively well. I don't think they used Carson Beck enough in this game. I know his completion percentage wasn't super high. But not to recap of the game, it's just what a season. Mendoza showed you a lot. Charlie Becker caught two insane backside practices or backside catches back shoulder catches. My bad. And it was just they kept making play after play after play, especially after things weren't going their way. They didn't execute on nearly as high of a level as they did in the first in the first two playoff games. So, Dylan, I will bring it to you. I know I've flapped my jaws a lot. What a season for Indiana, and your thoughts on just Indiana in this game?
Well, first off, let me say this before I get started on that. I think you were talking about it, Indiana being up by 10 with 9 minutes left. It would have been easy for Miami to quit in that game, and I think you got to give them credit for just the explosion, like on offense, that last drive they had up until the interception and the drive before that to stay in this game. No one thought they were going to win. I mean, you saw the stands; it was mostly red. Like no one thought that this team was going to win this game. But to answer your question, I mean, the greatest turnaround in college football history. We talked about this off the record. Like a team that just has consistently lost every year. They've never been good. To turn it around and win 27 of 29 games under Cignetti and end it with a national championship, like you love to see it. I mean, it's truly spectacular. It's truly amazing. And I think that and we talked about this before, this roster doesn't have crazy talent on it. They only have, what, 4 stars, no 5 stars? Like, for this team to do what they've been able to do this year, win every single game, and most of them by a wide margin, like, you got to not only give props to this team, like you said, Mendoza, but I think Curt Cignetti deserves a lot of credit.
It just an incredible effort from Indiana when they weren't able to execute on nearly as high of a level. Speaking of off the record, we all made score predictions for the national championship game. I'm gonna show it in the camera because I didn't upload it because we were just trying to get this out quickly. I don't think you can see that. Yeah, you can't see it, but it says I got Indiana 27-21.
Yeah, I can confirm.
I don't know why, but it's not showing.
I can confirm.
It's not showing. Briggs and Dillon can't confirm. We made these predictions right before the game started, about 4:20 Pacific, 4:30 Pacific. So right before the game started. So I'm gonna go buy a lottery ticket tomorrow. But anyways, back on the record, Miami, they made really big adjustments on offense and defense. The stretch play was a huge thing. It served them really well against Ohio State. They ran the ball outside really well. They ended up getting that big 52-yard, I think it was, something like that. Big 50-plus yard, 57-yard touchdown from Mark Fletcher. The penalties really hurt them. We were 7 of 60 on penalties, 70 penalties for 60 yards. Indiana had 5 of 38. Missed field goal really hurt them, but I thought their defense did play well on the other side. They had 3 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 4 pass breakups. Didn't force Mendoza into an interception. I thought he might throw one.
Yeah.
And so, Dylan, and it's said a lot in football that, especially games that are this close in margin when it comes to how good a team is, 3 to 5 plays. And it really was about 3 to 5 plays in this game that really determine the outcome, you could really mark
Yeah.
it down to two with the missed field goal and the punt block. Just
Yeah.
minor mistakes that they could have been fixed. And Carson Beck even throwing that interception, I think if he
Yeah.
throws that just a little bit further to the pylon, I think that is a touchdown.
Yeah.
So, but the inevitable Carson Beck interception came back to haunt them. So it was a great season for Miami. I think Mario Cristobal has improved that team every year, and they've gotten all the way up to this point. They beat a juggernaut in Texas A&M who had not lost a game until they played Texas. They lost to Ohio State, who was the reigning national champions. They were able to beat Ole Miss, who had gotten over the hump and knocked over Georgia. Granted, they were without their head coach, but still a great feat and an absolute barn burner of a game. And then they come up just short to the Hoosiers that it seemed that a lot of people were saying that we're going to run away with this game, and they only came up a couple of plays short.
Look, I agree. It came down to a couple plays. I mean, if you go back and look, I think that the biggest one, in my opinion, was the punt block. I mean, granted, they went down the field and they scored on the next drive, but at the same time, you can't have that happening. Like, let's just say if you don't pin them down the field, that you can't go down and win this game. Or the same with the interception. Like they were a couple plays there at the end, and props to Indiana for running the clock down. And even though they didn't come away with the touchdown on their last drive, they really kind of left the Hurricanes in a bad position. No timeouts to go down the field, and a lot that kind of pressure on a quarterback is kind of what forces Carson Beck into trying to force the ball down the field. Like if you go back and you watch that play, that safety was coming over. That safety was coming over. I can't say that I think it would have been a touchdown, but maybe if he puts a little bit more on it, he at least catches it. But it just the timing was off on the whole thing, and I think that's what led to that interception and ultimately sealed the game for the Hoosiers.
Well, and we were just talking about that safety.
Yeah,
Who Jamari Sharp was the corner on that play, and he was the one that ended up making the interception. I
yeah,
think, and he had his eyes on the quarterback the entire time, which I'm pretty sure you're the one that has played football, but I'm pretty sure they teach you not to do. But it ended up paying huge dividends in the end of that game to steal a national championship. And I
yeah,
cannot say this enough. First national championship in school history for the Hoosiers.
yeah,
They end up pulling this one out. They are the first 16-0 team, and I don't think I said this on the record, but I had been saying all year, a lot of the year, that a 16-0 champion was just not going to happen. That was not a thing that was going to happen, and Indiana proved me wrong. Signetti proved me wrong. And Signetti, the way he coaches it, such a fine little piece of detail, and every little detail is something to to improve on. And they had executed every little detail almost perfectly until this game. And we had technical difficulties with Dillon, and but I will go on. But so just can't say it enough. Like the first 16, they're the first 16-0 team since 1894, and they just and every little detail had to be perfect for the Hoosiers. They the I mean the pump block they executed there. Just a lot of teams just no one executed the way the Hoosiers did all year. And for them to come out on top, it kind of if the writing was kind of on the wall after they beat Ohio State. It kind of seemed like that this was going to be the thing. I also want to publicly say if you were comparing this Indiana team to 2019 LSU, you are an idiot. And this game was never going to be a blowout. I think there is a huge difference between who Alabama was and who Miami is, and the Oregon game was a lot more Dante Moore's turnovers. Moving on, what this means for college football. And I think the expectations for new coaches is at an all-time high. And you just saw Kurt Signetti take the Indiana Hoosiers, who were the losingest program going into this season in college football, to a national championship within 2 years of his tenure, with not blue chip guys, not elite 5-star talent that he was able to just go poach out of the portal. It was a lot of rejects that were able to just keep fighting and keep going, and they played together. You could see the team togetherness. There's never an I in their team. And so you got to wonder what the message is next year. On a different note, I do think this is going to be a little bit of a net negative for college football. I think you will see new coaches get fired left and right if they are not meeting the expectations that Kurt Signetti has set among college football. So Kurt Signetti set such high expectations in the sport. And now guys like Summerall, Golish, Kurt Signetti's doing it at Indiana. So why can't you do it? Why are you 6-6 in year 2? Kurt Signetti just went 16-0. And I think Signetti is just a unicorn. I don't think there's anyone that is going to, I don't know if anyone's going to be able to replicate what Signetti has done because so sorry. The expectation Signetti has set is so high. And so the expectation for every other coach is going to be, well, you need to go win a natty within your first couple of years. And so I think it's going to be a problem. I think you're going to see a lot of second and third year head coaches get fired if they're not making the playoffs. You see this talk about expansion and whatnot. And so I think expansion is a net negative for the sport, but I do think it would give some of these coaches a little more time. I think, like I said, guys like Summerall, so guys like Golish, and guys like Matt Campbell is another example. Guys at some of these other programs, you're not going to get as much from that. Like, they're not going to be able to replicate. I think what Signetti has done and the message he's able to put in their heads and to be able to keep going and winning and executing on a super high level. They were incredibly good at leaning on your defense this year. And they don't really have an offensive scheme. They use what you use on defense against you. And I just don't know if that style is for every coach, especially to do it within 2 years. I think the expectations are so high. And like I said, I can't say this enough that Indiana never had a Heisman winner, just had a Heisman winner. Never won a national championship. Now has won a national championship, being the first 16-0 team in college football history. And it puts a cap on an incredible college football season. I think the playoffs were a little bit higher quality than they were last year. And like the game quality is a little bit higher, even though the off the field product is really bad in college football. I think that on the field we are not having problems. And he is back. And struggling there for a second. So trying to fill time so you can get back in. So it's finally back. I kind of want your take a little bit. Any final thoughts on the game? And then what you think this means for college football?
I mean, I think offensively, Miami outplayed Indiana. But just, I think And I think they did a great job responding to Indiana every time that they scored or every time that the momentum really shifted in their favor, because we saw that a couple times with the punt block, with the Mendoza touchdown. I think they did a great job responding, but just props to Indiana, man, for being able to not only do what they did the whole season, but to win this game. And overall for college football, I think that think we might have a potential new powerhouse, of course, in the Big Ten, meaning Indiana. What about you? Do you think Indiana's a
Well,
potential candidate to win the national championship year in and year out, or do you think this might have been a
I think dynasties are going to be really hard to come by in a 12-team playoff because the wider you
right?
expand the playoff, the more variance there is. When you're only playing two games, it's a lot harder. It's a lot there's a lot less variance. Like, yeah, you're playing two of the best top four teams in the country, but there's a lot less variance. When
Yeah,
you have to go play three and four top 12 teams in the country or top 11 teams in the country, it's a lot higher variance. The point I was making while you were gone is I think expectations are going to be so high for new
yeah,
coaches that it ends up being a net negative because ADs are like, your excuses are gone. You're in your like Signetti just won a national championship with Indiana, not in basketball,
yeah.
but in football. And so I really think it's going to be a net negative. I think it's really going to harm. I think you're going to see a lot of second and third year coaches continue to get fired by programs that have historically been good, like Auburn, Florida, Penn State. They fired James Franklin for a struggling season this year and not winning the national championship last year. So I think it's going to cause a lot of problems for younger coaches to be able to sustain and build a culture when a culture is not a culture is a lot harder to build in the traditional sense
I
of
agree.
college football. And again, cannot say that enough. Just snapping some of these streaks in Indiana, it is historic. And we're going to talk a lot more about the state of college football as we move forward. And I really do wonder how this kind of affects the Indiana. This is the second time in the last 7 years that a conference has won, or three different teams for in the same conference have won consecutive national titles. You had LSU, Alabama, and Georgia do it in 2020 or 2019 through 2021. Georgia won in 2022, and then in 23, 24, and 25, you had Indiana win. You had the Big Ten win those three national championships. Do you think that will ever happen again, or do you think we're going to get a lot more parity, especially with the U being back and maybe James Franklin building a powerhouse in Virginia Tech and a couple of
Well,
these ACC teams? And I think this is the third. The ACC's had three different teams in the playoffs, and I'm trying to think. I think the SEC is the only, or I guess the Big Ten and the SEC, but the ACC's had three different teams in the playoffs, which is surprising considering
see,
ACC.
yeah.
But what
I mean, if
is
it,
your
I
thoughts?
don't think it'll be the ACC that does it two or three times in a row. But I'll say this: I think if a Big Ten team or an SEC team wins a national championship again next year, I don't think anyone's really going to be that surprised. So could the streak continue? Maybe, but I don't think it'll happen again. Like I don't think we'll see a stretch of 7 years where only two conferences win every national championship. I'll say that.
Well, my point is I don't know if you're going
Yeah,
to get three different teams winning it consecutively. Like it would be absolutely insane per se Oregon or
yeah,
USC go and win the national championship next year because that would be the fourth different team from the same conference in consecutive
yeah.
years to win the national championship. That is insane. And like no one thought Indiana was going to go win a national
Yeah,
championship this year, me included. I didn't
me
have
neither.
Indiana in my preseason predictions. So, so, I think that it's going to be really hard to have different teams again. I don't think
Yeah.
you're going to see a dynasty anymore. I think there are going to be teams that compete
Yeah,
consistently in the playoffs. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think you're going to see a dynasty
I
anymore
agree. I mean,
in
it's
college
gotten
football.
harder as times went on. And I mean, how many years in a row has it been since there's been? How many years has it been since there's been a consecutive winner? Georgia, 21 and 22. Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
it was Georgia,
Typically, yeah,
and that
yeah.
was in the four-team system.
With 12 teams
That was in
plus,
the
I
four-team
mean, we've
system.
talked about this off the record, potential expansion to 16 or maybe even 24. Yeah, I just don't think that it's likely that there can be a team that consistently every single year can, like you said, beat 3 or 4 teams and go win a national championship every year. There will be teams that compete every single year, but I don't think that we're going to see any dynasties like Alabama or so.
Well, and you look at some of these teams right now, especially with the transfer portal. Georgia hasn't won a college football playoff game since they won the national
Right.
championship in 2022. The Wolverines haven't even made the playoffs the last 2 years. Ohio State lost their two postseason games this year. So, and I do not doubt Signetti on anything anymore. Signetti could go
Yeah,
turn this thing into a Saban type dynasty, but I don't think that a consistent national champion
I agree.
is going to happen anymore. Quick question. Star of the game, we have Kurt Signetti for not only what he did in this game, getting Indiana prepared, but what he has done the entire year. I think it's incredibly impressive. Is there a better coach in college
Not right
football than
now.
Kurt
I don't think
Signetti right
so.
now?
I don't think there's anyone that's what.
Uh,
What were you I don't think there's anyone over the
Go ahead.
maybe not over the last 2 years, but this year alone that's been able to accomplish what he has. No one else won every single game. No one else took a roster like again, we've talked about this multiple times, a roster like that and accomplished this. I don't think that there's a better coach in college football. I mean, he's 27-2. He's a national champion now. He's joined the elite club.
And like I said, we're gonna try to stay in the moment right here. Hopefully on Friday's episode, we will have a little bit more to talk about with the entire state of college football. But any I'll give my final thoughts on all of it and then I'll get yours. Um Indiana, I mean, this caps off an incredible college football season. And like I said, we'll talk about this a little bit more later. An incredible season for the Hoosiers, and they move on, become national championship champions. This has Mendoza up right now, 2 of 2 in the fourth quarter on back shoulder throws. It's just what a season of college football. Even if it's not the ending anyone expected, I can tell you I was way off on my playoff predictions. Already way off on my NFL ones as well, but I did guess the score right, so that's all that matters. I almost felt as good as Ohio State winning the national championship last year. But But and I think this game was a perfect way to encapsulate what the on the field product of college football has been this season. Just a bunch of body blows, teams fighting back and forth, and a lot of elite, heritable talent around the the sport. And I just an incredible season. I think the on the field product's only getting better in college football. Your
I
parting
agree completely. I
thoughts?
mean, I like the expansion to 12 teams. I think it makes the whole thing more interesting, and it keeps it from the same team winning every single year. And I mean, this year's been spectacular. Like, not only did no one expect Indiana to do what they did, but like as we got closer to today, you expected what was going to happen. But Miami, no one thought that a 2-loss team. Well, No one thought that they were even going to make the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken, let alone go to the college football play, or excuse me, the national championship, and it goes down to the last play or second to last play. But I think it was a great year, and
I will say that I will say that I will give a lot of credit to Chris Paul and Miami as well, considering after that SMU game, everyone was like, "Get Miami out of here," and they dropped really low in the rankings, and no one thought they were gonna be here, and a lot of people were arguing Notre Dame should have been in over them. On a different note, just incredible season. We thank you as Dylan falls out of the recording again. We thank you for your time and hope you like and subscribe and hope you found some value in our overall thoughts. Please let us know what you thought of the national championship in college football this weekend. Have a great week, and we will see you on Wednesday.